Danielle's phone wouldn't stop vibrating against the steering wheel, each buzz a new reminder she didn't have room for. A bank alert. A missed call from her sister. Another email with the subject line past due. The iced Starbucks in her cup holder had turned watery, the lid slick with sweat, like it was nervous too. The foreman said, standing in the torn-up backyard with clay up to his boots. He didn't sound excited. He sounded careful. Behind him, a backhoe sat frozen mid-scoop, its metal teeth hovering over a dark patch of earth that didn't look like dirt anymore. It looked like a surface. "We hit something," he said, and he held up a rusted, mud-caked metal box like it was heavier than it should have been. And it wasn't a rock. Danielle swallowed hard, tasting coffee and panic. "Is it a pipe?" The foreman shook his head slowly. "No. It's a box. And there's writing on it." He wiped it with his glove. One word showed through the mud, carved in shaky capital letters. "Please." And right then, Danielle's phone buzzed again, this time with a text from her kid's school. "Can you pick him up early?" She stared at the box like it was staring back. "Open it," the foreman asked. Danielle's eyes burned, and she hated that she could feel tears coming over something that wasn't even hers. "Yeah," she whispered. "Open it." Danielle never planned to be the kind of person who put a pool on a credit card. If you'd asked her 5 years ago, back when she and Matt were still wee and not court paperwork, she would have laughed and said something practical, like, "We'll take the kids to the community pool like normal people." Back then, she was the kind of person who clipped coupons without feeling embarrassed and bought the store brand with confidence. She was steady. She was fine. Now, she lived in Mesa, Arizona, in a house she got in the divorce mostly because Matt didn't want the mortgage. That was how he phrased it, like he was being generous. Danielle knew the real reason. He wanted a clean exit. The house wasn't a gift. It was a weight he didn't want to drag. The backyard had been her idea. It started as this small thing she told herself after the divorce papers were final. A reset. A promise. She had told her son, Tyler, "We're going to make this place ours." She said it like she believed it, like a backyard could fix the way Tyler got quiet when Matt forgot to call. Mesa summers were brutal, and the yard was a patchy rectangle of sunburned grass and rock. Every evening, Danielle would stand in the sliding door and watch Tyler kick a soccer ball against the fence by himself, the sound dull and lonely. The neighborhood kids didn't come over much. Danielle didn't blame them. She wasn't the fun house anymore. She was the tired house. So she did what tired people do when they're scared. She bought something. Not a new car. Not clothes. Not a vacation. A pool. Something that looked like stability from the outside. Something that would keep Tyler home, safe, close. Something that might make him smile without forcing it. She'd gotten 3 estimates. The first one made her laugh out loud in her kitchen like a person in a movie losing it. The second one was only slightly less ridiculous. The third one, from a mid-sized company called Sunline Pools, came with a payment plan and a salesman who said, "You deserve this," like he knew her. Danielle signed the contract with a shaky hand while Tyler played on her phone and Matt's last email sat unopened in her inbox. Now it was Tuesday. It was 102 degrees before noon. The backyard was torn up like a construction zone, orange flags and spray paint marking where her fresh start was supposed to go. 2 workers moved with the slow efficiency of people used to heat that could kill you if you got proud. The backhoe beeped in short, impatient bursts. Dust lifted in little clouds that clung to Danielle's calves. She stood on the patio with her arms crossed, watching like she was supervising, like she had any control. Her workday had started at 6 a.m. with Tyler's lunch and the feeling of something missing. Not Matt. She didn't miss Matt, not the way she used to. She missed the version of herself who didn't check her bank app like it was a pulse. She missed the way her shoulders used to sit lower. At the hospital where she worked, billing, not clinical, she spent her morning on the phone with a man yelling about a copri, then a woman crying because her insurance denied something Danielle didn't have the power to approve. Danielle apologized a lot for things she didn't do. She was good at it. She had practice. By lunchtime, she'd eaten a granola bar in her car and stared at her steering wheel long enough to notice a faint crack in the leather. She wondered when it happened. She wondered how long she'd been too tired to see small things breaking. When she got home early, The crew was already digging. She tried to be polite. She really did. She offered bottled water and pretended she wasn't worried about every minute that passed, each minute becoming another line item in her head. Matt paid child support most months, but there was always some reason it was late. Matt was the kind of person who thought being busy was the same as being responsible. Danielle's sister, Rachel, called while Danielle was standing on the patio. "You watching your pool get born?" Rachel asked, trying to make it light. "More like watching my bank account die," Danielle said, and she hated how flat her voice sounded. Rachel sighed. "You didn't have to do this, you know." Danielle watched the backhoe swing another scoop of earth into a growing pile. The dirt looked redder than she expected, like the ground had its own bruises. "I know," Danielle said. "But Tyler needs something." "Tyler needs you," Rachel said, gentle but firm. "Not a pool." Danielle swallowed. "He gets me. He gets me tired and stressed and always checking the time. I want him to get something that feels normal." Rachel was quiet for a moment, then said, "Okay. I get it. I do. Just, please don't break yourself trying to build a picture of a life." Danielle didn't answer because her throat went tight in that familiar way it did when someone said something true. She ended the call and stood there with the sun on her shoulders, feeling like she was balancing on a thin line between doing her best and doing too much. The foreman, Ray, according to his shirt patch, walked over around 2 p.m. His face was shiny with sweat, his expression cautious. "Ms. Jansen," he called. Danielle wiped her palms on her shorts and stepped down off the patio. "Yeah. What's up?" Ray pointed toward the deepening hole. "We hit something about 5 feet down. Not a utility line. Not a rock. Something solid." Danielle's stomach dropped. "What do you mean, something solid?" Ray hesitated, like he was choosing words that wouldn't make her panic. "Like, metal. Flat. A container maybe." We stopped right away. Danielle's mind immediately filled with the worst things: broken pipes, permits, fines, delays, extra charges she didn't have. She pictured calling Matt and hearing him say, "Not my problem." She walked closer, the heat pressing against her like a hand. The hole was wide now, the edges cut sharp. In the bottom, there was a dark shape half buried in clay. One worker used a shovel to clear around it carefully. No one joked. No one acted casual. It wasn't the mood people had when they found an old sprinkler line. It was the mood people had when they found something they didn't expect to belong. Ray climbed down partway and reached into the dirt. He pulled up a box, metal, old, rusted at the corners. It looked like a lunch pail from another decade, the handle stiff with corrosion. Danielle stood at the edge, staring. On the lid, under the mud, were scratches in uneven letters. Like someone had carved them with a key, or a nail, or whatever they had. Ray rubbed it with his glove until the words showed. "Please. If you find this, read." Danielle's mouth went dry. Her first thought was, "This is going to cost me money." Her second thought came right after, quiet and heavier: someone wanted to be heard. Ray looked up at her. "Do you want to call the city? Or, do you want to open it?" Danielle's phone buzzed in her back pocket like it had an opinion. She didn't pull it out yet. She kept looking at the box, at the word "please" carved like a bruise. Her life felt like a stack of things she hadn't dealt with: overdue notices, school forms, unanswered emails, nights where Tyler asked, "Why doesn't Dad come?" And Danielle said, "He loves you," because what else could she say? And now, from under her own yard, a stranger's message had found her. Danielle took a slow breath. She heard herself say, "Open it." Ray set the box on the patio table like it was fragile. One of the workers brought a screwdriver. The metal latch resisted, then gave with a soft snap. The lid lifted. Inside were no jewels, no cash, no movie-style secrets. Just everyday things, packed carefully. A plastic bag sealed with tape. A stack of envelopes tied with a faded blue ribbon. A small, worn key. And on top, a folded sheet of paper with handwriting so neat and tense it made Danielle's chest ache. Ray glanced at her, as if checking that she was still okay. Danielle didn't feel okay, exactly. She felt like she'd stepped into someone else's unfinished sentence. Her phone buzzed again. This time she pulled it out. A text from Tyler's school. Tyler isn't feeling well. Can you pick him up? Danielle stared at the message, then at the box, then back at the message. Her life didn't pause for buried letters. Her life didn't pause for anything. But her hand drifted to the folded note anyway. She unfolded it. The first line read, "If you're reading this, it means I didn't get to fix what I broke." Danielle's eyes stung so fast she felt blindsided by it. She didn't even know who wrote it. She didn't know why it felt personal. She just knew, suddenly, that she wasn't the only person who'd stood in this heat feeling like a failure. And that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't about a pool at all. Danielle didn't read the whole letter right away. She folded it back up after the first paragraph, like it was too hot to touch, and slipped it back into the box. Her phone was still in her hand, Tyler's school waiting for an answer. Life didn't care about timing, and it definitely didn't care about emotional moments. "I need to go get my kid," she said to Ray, her voice a little rushed, a little embarrassed. Can you cover it? Just for today?" Ray nodded without hesitation. "We'll top the hole and secure the box. No one's touching anything until you're back." "Thank you," Danielle said, and she meant it more than she could explain. The drive to Tyler's school felt longer than usual. Every red light made her tap the steering wheel. Her mind kept drifting back to the box, to the careful way the envelopes were tied, to the word "please" carved into metal like it was the last thing someone could control. Tyler was sitting on a bench outside the nurse's office when Danielle arrived. His backpack was at his feet. He looked pale but calm, like a kid who didn't want to be trouble. "Hey, buddy," Danielle said, forcing a smile as she signed him out. "You okay?" "My stomach hurts," he said, then added quickly, "but I think I'll be fine." Danielle knew that tone. It was the same one she used when someone asked how she was doing. She rested a hand on his shoulder. "We'll go home and rest." On the drive back, Tyler stared out the window. "Mom," he said after a while, quiet. "Are the pool guys still there?" "Yeah," Danielle said. "They're digging." "Did they find anything cool?" he asked, hopeful. Danielle hesitated. "They found something old." Tyler perked up. "Like treasure?" "No," Danielle said softly. "More like a story." Tyler thought about that, then nodded like that made sense. At home, she settled him on the couch with a blanket and ginger ale. He leaned against her, heavier than he used to be, and she noticed how quickly time was moving without asking permission. While Tyler slept, Danielle couldn't stop thinking about the box. She paced the kitchen, stepped into the backyard, stared at the top covering the hole like it was hiding an answer. She told herself to wait, to be responsible, to deal with one thing at a time. But curiosity isn't loud. It's quiet and persistent. It sits next to you and asks questions until you answer. That evening, after Tyler woke up and ate a few crackers, Danielle sent him to his room with his tablet. "I'm going to check on something outside," she said. "Okay," he replied, already distracted. Ray was gone for the day, but the box sat on the patio table where he'd left it, covered with a plastic sheet and a brick to keep it from blowing away. Danielle pulled the chair out and sat down slowly, like she was preparing herself. She opened the box again. The smell surprised her first. Not rot, not mold. Just old paper and dust. Time. Bottled. She picked up the letter and unfolded it fully this time. The handwriting was neat but tight, like the writer had tried very hard not to let their hand shake. "If you're reading this, it means I didn't get to fix what I broke." The letter went on to explain that the box belonged to a man named Harold. No last name at first. Just Harold. He wrote about the house, about buying it decades ago when the neighborhood was newer and the trees were shorter. He wrote about working long hours and thinking that providing was the same as being present. Danielle felt something pull in her chest. Harold wrote about his wife leaving first. Then his daughter, Emily, following soon after. Not in anger. In exhaustion. In disappointment that never turned into a fight because it had already gone quiet. "I kept telling myself I'd call tomorrow," he wrote. Then tomorrow kept moving. Danielle leaned back in the chair, the Arizona sky turning orange above her fence. She didn't cry. Not yet. She just breathed. The next envelope held photos. Old ones. A little girl on a swing. A birthday cake with uneven candles. A man standing stiffly beside a Christmas tree, smiling like he wasn't sure how. The girl looked happy. The man looked distant. Danielle checked the next envelope. Legal papers. A deed transfer. The house had changed hands after Harold died. There were notes scribbled in the margins, reminders to himself that never reached anyone else. Then she found the voicemail transcript. Not a recording. Just words written out, carefully, like he'd replayed it over and over. Emily, it's Dad. I know you don't want to talk. I just want you to know I'm proud of you. I always was. I just didn't say it enough. Or at all. I'm sorry. Danielle's vision blurred. She thought about Tyler upstairs. About the way he shrugged when she asked about school. About the nights she fell asleep scrolling instead of asking one more question. She closed the box and pressed her palms flat on the table. I'm trying, she whispered to no one. I really am. The next morning, Danielle did something she hadn't planned. She called the number on the deed paperwork. The real estate office that had handled the sale years ago. This might sound strange, she said when someone answered. But I think I found something that belonged to the previous owner of my house. I was hoping you might have a forwarding contact. A family member. Anyone. The woman on the line paused, then said, let me check. Danielle waited, heart pounding louder than it should have. There was a daughter, the woman said finally. Emily Harper. She asked not to be contacted, but I can give you an email address. No guarantees. Danielle stared at the wall, at the crack by the light switch she'd been meaning to fix. That's okay, she said. I want to try. After she hung up, Danielle sat at the kitchen table for a long time with her laptop open and a blank email staring back at her. She didn't know this woman. She didn't know if this would hurt more than help. She didn't know if it was her place. Her finger hovered over the keyboard. Then Tyler came into the kitchen and asked, Mom? Can I show you something I made? Danielle closed the laptop gently. Yeah, she said. Of course. As Tyler talked, she listened. Really listened. She didn't check her phone. She didn't rush. Later, when the house was quiet again, Danielle reopened the laptop. She typed slowly. Hi Emily. You don't know me. My name is Danielle. I live in the house your father once owned. I'm writing because I found something of his while doing some work. I don't know if you want it. I just didn't feel right keeping it. She read it 3 times before hitting send. When she did, nothing magical happened. No immediate reply. No release. Just a small shift inside her chest. Like she'd moved something heavy a few inches instead of trying to lift it all at once. Outside, the backyard waited. The hole stayed covered. The pool unfinished. For the first time since signing the contract, Danielle didn't think about the money. She thought about time. About words left unsaid. About how easy it was to think there would always be another day. And how, sometimes, a connection doesn't fix your life. It just reminds you to show up while you still can. Emily replied 3 days later. Danielle saw the email while standing in line at a coffee shop near the hospital, the smell of burnt espresso and cinnamon pastries thick in the air. Her phone buzzed in her hand, and she almost ignored it out of habit. When she glanced down and saw the sender name, her chest tightened so suddenly she had to step out of line. She stood by the window, the sun glaring off parked cars, and opened the message. I didn't expect to hear from anyone connected to that house, the email began. I'm not sure how I feel about this. I need some time. That was it. No anger. No gratitude. Just uncertainty. Danielle exhaled slowly. She hadn't realized how much she'd been hoping for something clearer. A yes or a no. Something that told her she'd done the right thing. Instead, she got maybe. The next few days felt heavier than the ones before. The pool project was officially on pause. The company needed clearance from the city to make sure the box wasn't part of anything historic or regulated. That meant paperwork, inspections, waiting. Danielle nodded through the explanations and signed where she was told, even as the numbers in her head rearranged themselves into new shapes. Delays meant added costs. Added costs meant stress she could feel in her jaw when she slept. At work, she made a mistake entering a claim and had to fix it on her lunch break. Her supervisor didn't yell, which somehow made it worse. Danielle sat in her car afterward and stared at the dashboard, fighting the urge to cry over something so small. At home, Tyler asked when the pool would be done. Soon, Danielle said, too quickly. You said that last week, he replied, not accusing, just honest. I know, she said. Things just take time. Tyler nodded, then went back to his room. Danielle stood in the hallway longer than necessary, listening to the faint sounds of a video game through his door. She wondered if he believed her anymore. She wondered if she'd started sounding like Matt without meaning to. That night, after Tyler fell asleep, Danielle sat at the kitchen table with the box open again. She hadn't shown Tyler. She didn't know how. How do you explain to a child that your yard held someone else's regrets? She reread Harold's words, slower this time. She noticed things she hadn't before. The way he wrote about being tired. About telling himself he'd rest later. About confusing silence with peace. She closed her eyes and leaned her forehead against her hand. She wasn't Harold. She told herself that. She was present. She made lunches. She showed up. But there were other ways of leaving. She thought about how often she said later to Tyler. How often she answered emails while he talked. How often she collapsed at the end of the day and called it survival instead of absence. Her phone buzzed on the table. A notification from her bank app. She didn't open it. She already knew what it would say. The breaking point didn't come as a single dramatic moment. It came quietly, in pieces. It came when Matt texted to say he'd be late on child support again, followed by sorry, work's crazy, like that was supposed to settle something. It came when Tyler's teacher emailed to ask if everything was okay at home because Tyler had been distracted in class. It came when Danielle looked at the unfinished backyard, the torn-up ground, the top flapping slightly in the evening breeze, and felt like the mess outside matched the one inside her. One Friday evening, Danielle snapped. Tyler asked if he could invite a friend over. Not right now, Danielle said, sharper than she meant to. Why not? He asked, confused. Because the yard is a disaster, because I'm tired, because I said so, she replied, and immediately hated the sound of her own voice. Tyler's face fell. He didn't argue. He just nodded and went back to his room. Danielle stood alone in the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator loud in the silence. She sank into a chair and put her head in her hands. This wasn't about the pool. It wasn't even about the box. It was about control. About trying to build something external that proved she was doing okay when she didn't feel okay at all. Later that night, Danielle knocked on Tyler's door. Hey, she said softly. He looked up from his bed. Yeah. I'm sorry, she said. I shouldn't have snapped. It's okay, he said automatically. She shook her head. No, it's not. You didn't do anything wrong. Tyler hesitated, then asked, Are you mad at me? The question hit harder than anything else that week. No, Danielle said quickly, sitting on the edge of the bed. Never. I'm just overwhelmed. Tyler picked at the corner of his blanket. Sometimes you look like you're far away. Danielle felt tears rise before she could stop them. I don't want to be, she said. I'm trying to figure things out. Tyler leaned against her side. I just want you here. She wrapped an arm around him, holding on like she might lose him if she didn't. That night, after Tyler fell asleep, Danielle opened her laptop and stared at her budget spreadsheet. She stared at the pool payment. She stared at the numbers until they blurred. Then she did something that felt like failure and relief at the same time. She emailed Sunline Pools and asked about cancelling. The reply came the next morning. There would be fees. Not nothing. But not impossible. Danielle closed the laptop and sat quietly for a long time. Her phone buzzed again. Another email from Emily. I've been thinking about your message, it read. I don't know if I'm ready to take what you found. But thank you for not throwing it away. That means more than you probably realize. Danielle pressed her lips together. She typed back slowly. You don't owe me anything, she wrote. I just didn't want his words to stay buried. When she hit send, something inside her loosened. The breaking point wasn't when everything collapsed. It was when Danielle realized she couldn't keep digging deeper, hoping to find something that would fix her life. She had to stop digging. She had to decide what mattered enough to keep. And for the first time in a long while, she wasn't thinking about what she was losing. She was thinking about what she was finally ready to let go of. The hole in the backyard stayed open for another week. Not because Danielle didn't care, but because she finally stopped rushing to fix things the moment they felt uncomfortable. The top rested loosely over the dirt, held down by bricks that had once lined the edge of the lawn. In the mornings, she'd slide the door open and let the dry Arizona air in, looking at the half-finished space without flinching. It wasn't pretty, but it was honest. Sunline Pools confirmed the cancellation. There was a fee, like they'd said. Danielle paid it with a knot in her stomach, then adjusted her budget, line by line. She cut back where she could. Fewer takeout nights. No more impulse grocery trips. She cancelled 2 subscriptions she barely used. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't fix everything. But for the first time in months, the numbers stopped shouting at her. Tyler noticed the change before she said anything. So, no pool? He asked one afternoon while they sat on the couch, sharing a bag of popcorn. No pool, Danielle said. He was quiet for a moment. She braced herself. Okay, he said finally. Can we still do movie nights? Danielle smiled, small and real. Yeah, we can do movie nights. He leaned his head against her arm. That's better anyway. A few days later, Emily emailed again. I'm coming to Arizona next week for work, she wrote. If you're still willing, I think I'd like to see the box. Danielle read the message twice, then once more slowly. Of course, she replied. No pressure. We can meet wherever you're comfortable. They chose a coffee shop a few miles from Danielle's house. Neutral ground. Nothing sentimental. Just tables, background noise, and people minding their own business. Emily arrived first. Danielle recognized her immediately from the photos in the box, though the little girl had grown into a woman with tired eyes and a careful smile. She looked like someone who'd learned to manage expectations. Danielle? Emily asked. Yes, Danielle said, standing. Hi. They shook hands awkwardly, then Saturday. Emily wrapped both hands around her coffee cup like it was something solid she could rely on. Thank you for meeting me, Emily said. Thank you for coming, Danielle replied. There was a pause. Not uncomfortable, just quiet. I didn't know what to do when I got your email, Emily said finally. Part of me wanted to delete it. Part of me wanted to pretend my dad never existed. Danielle nodded. That makes sense. Emily looked up, surprised. You don't think that's terrible? No, Danielle said. I think it's human. Emily exhaled, shoulders dropping slightly. Danielle slid the box across the table. I didn't read everything, she said. That wasn't entirely true, but it felt like the right thing to say. I didn't want to take more than I should. Emily opened the lid slowly. Her fingers trembled just enough for Danielle to notice. She took out the letters first, flipping through them without reading. Then the photos. Her face softened, then tightened. I forgot about this one, she said quietly, holding up a picture of herself at maybe 7 years old, missing 2 teeth and grinning wide. He hated taking pictures. Danielle smiled faintly. It shows. Emily laughed under her breath, then went quiet again. She unfolded the letter last. Danielle looked away, giving her privacy while staying present. She focused on the sound of the espresso machine, the murmur of conversations, the normalcy of everything happening around a moment that felt anything but normal. Emily's eyes filled, but she didn't cry. She pressed her lips together and nodded to herself like she was confirming something she already knew. He always wrote better than he spoke, Emily said. I think he wanted to be understood, Danielle said. Emily closed the box gently. I don't forgive him, she said. I don't think I ever will. But I don't feel as angry anymore. Danielle nodded. Sometimes that's enough. Emily studied her. Why did you do this? Danielle didn't answer right away. She thought about the pool. About the hole. About Tyler's question, are you mad at me? I think I needed the reminder, she said honestly. That time doesn't wait for perfect conditions. Emily gave a small, sad smile. Yeah. They sat there a little longer, talking about nothing important. Weather, work, traffic. When they stood to leave, Emily hugged Danielle briefly. I'm glad you live in that house, Emily said. I think he would have liked that. Danielle watched her walk out, feeling a strange sense of closure over a story that wasn't hers to finish. That evening, Danielle came home to Tyler doing homework at the kitchen table. Guess what? She said. What? He asked. I met someone today who used to live here a long time ago. Tyler's eyes widened. Like a ghost. Danielle laughed. No. Just a person. Oh, he said, a little disappointed. She ruffled his hair. People leave stories behind, too. Later, after dinner, they went into the backyard together. Danielle pulled the top back, showing Tyler the hole. Is this where the pool was going? He asked. Yeah, she said. He peered down, then looked up at her. What are we going to do with it? Danielle thought about it. Maybe a garden, she said. Or maybe we just fill it in and start over. Tyler nodded. I like gardens. That weekend, they filled the hole together. Not all at once. Shovel by shovel. It was slow. Messy. The dirt stained their shoes and got under Tyler's fingernails. They laughed when they both got tired too fast. It wasn't a big win. No one clapped. No music swelled. But when Danielle washed her hands that night, she noticed something different in the mirror. Her shoulders sat a little lower. Her eyes looked tired, yes, but steadier. She hadn't fixed everything. She still worried about money. Tyler still missed his dad. The future was still uncertain. But the ground beneath her feet felt solid again. And sometimes, that's enough. Sometimes, the best thing you can build isn't something impressive. It's something honest. Something that lets you stay. Something that reminds you that even when life digs deep, what matters most is what you choose not to bury.